So we have reached the day when Satyavan must die. And we've had the description of Savitri waking up in the morning, remembering everything coming back to her, her whole life and the whole year that she's lived with Satyavan. She gets up, she does her work, and then she goes and prays to Durga. And then she goes to Satyavan's mother and asks for permission to accompany him, to go with him into the forest. She says, I have lived here for a whole year, and so far I didn't go out into the forest with Satyavan. So the mother gives permission, and they go together. And Satyavan is so happy to go into the forest with Savitri. He shows her all the flowers and the animals and the birds. He speaks about his childhood when he wandered in the forest. And she's listening, but Aurobindo tells us she's not thinking about the sense or the meaning of what he's saying. She's just listening to that beloved voice, because at every moment she's expecting that it will end. I'm going to read on from there. But Satyavan had paused. He meant to finish his labor here, that happy, linked, uncaring, they too might wander free in the green, deep, primeval mystery of the forest's heart. A tree that raised its tranquil head to heaven, luxuriating in verdure, summoning the breeze with amorous wideness of its boughs, he chose. And with his steel assailed the arm, brown, rough and strong, hidden in its emerald dress. Wordless but near she watched, no turn to lose of the bright face and body which she loved. Her life was now in seconds, not in hours, and every moment she economized like a pale merchant leaned above his store, the miser of his poor remaining gold. But Satyavan wielded a joyous axe. He sang high snatches of a sage's chant that pealed of conquered death and demons slain, and sometimes paused to cry to her sweet speech of love and mockery tenderer than love. She, like a pantheress, leaped upon his words and carried them into her cavern heart. But as he worked, his doom upon him came. The violent and hungry hounds of pain traveled through his body, biting as they passed silently, and all his suffering breath besieged strove to rend life's strong hard cords and be free. Then, helped, as if a beast had left its prey, a moment in a wave of rich relief, reborn to strength and happy ease, he stood, rejoicing, and resumed his confident toil, but with less seeing strokes. Now the great woodsman hewed at him, and his labor ceased. Lifting his arm, he flung away the poignant axe, far from him, like an instrument of pain. She came to him in silent anguish and clasped, and he cried to her, "Savitri, a pang cleaves through my head and breast, as if the axe were piercing it and not the living branch. Such agony rends me as the tree must feel when it is sundered and must lose its life. A while let me lay my head upon thy lap, and guard me with thy hands from evil fate. Perhaps because thou touchest, death may pass." Then Savitri sat under branches wide, cool, green against the sun. Not the hurt tree which his keen axe had cloven, that she shunned, but leaned beneath the fortunate kingly trunk. She guarded him in her bosom and strove to soothe his anguished brow and body with her hands. We're going this way. You will begin, Martin.
But Shraddhavan had paused. He meant to finish his labor here, that happy, linked, uncaring, they too might wander free in the green, deep, primeval mystery of the forest song.
Well, they'd been walking along and he'd been talking to her, and Savitri is oppressed with apprehension of the coming of the god of death. But Shraddhavan has paused, he has stopped for a time. He intends to complete his work. He has to take home a certain amount of wood, for the fires. And he wants to finish his work quickly so that he doesn't have to think about the work anymore, just the two of them linked arm in arm, uncaring, they can wander freely in the forest, in the green, deep, primeval mystery of the forest's heart. Primeval, it means belonging to the earliest time. Sometimes when we see undisturbed forest, we get the feeling that it might have been like that for millennia, for thousands of years. Unlikely, of course, but there's that feeling that, oh, this is what it was like in the beginning, in the early earth. Nihon.
A tree that raised its tranquil head to heaven, luxuriating in the amorous wideness of his boughs. He chose and with his steel essayed the arm, brown, rough and strong, hidden in its emerald dress.
Yes. So he chooses one of those trees, a tree that's actually in full leaf, luxuriating in verdure. Verdure means green, the green leaves. There's lots of those green leaves. And that tree is spreading its branches wide. Boughs are branches. It spreads its boughs wide, and it's as if it's calling to the breeze, to the wind, to come and play in its leaves, as if the tree is calling to the wind, summoning the breeze with amorous wideness of its arms. Lovingly it opens its arms to ask the breeze to come. He chooses that tree, and with his steel, with his axe, he attacks the arm, one of those boughs, one of those rough, brown, strong boughs, arms of the tree that are hidden in its emerald dress. Those lovely green leaves that cover it. Praveen.
Wordless but near she watched, no turn to lose, of the bright face and body which she loved. Her life was now in seconds, not in hours, and every moment she economized. Like a pale merchant leaned above his store, the miser of his poor remaining gold.
Yes. So she doesn't say anything, but she's watching intently. She doesn't want to miss any movement of Satyavan's face and body, because she knows that now her life together with him is going to be very short. She counts the seconds. She doesn't expect hours. So she's saving, treasuring every moment, economizing, counting, like somebody who has lost a lot of money. A pale merchant leaned above his store. He's afraid he's lost a great deal, but he wants to hold on to and treasure his poor remaining gold, whatever little is left to him. So whatever little time, however, these little moments, she is treasuring them like that. But Satyavan is feeling quite different. He's very happy. Shamala, would you read?
But Satyavan wielded a joyous axe. He sang high snatches of the sweetest song, but cleared of conquered death and remembrance, saying, and sometimes paused to cry to her sweet speech of love and offering, tenderer than love.
You can read the next two lines.
She, like a cantress, leaped upon his words and carried them into her cavern heart.
So it's a
Cavern.
yeah. So in just a few lines, Sri Aurobindo gives us such a vivid picture. You know, the happiness of Satyavan in his youth and his strength, cutting down the tree and singing as he works. He's singing one of those old chants from the rishis, from the sages, and that song that he's singing is about immortality. It's about conquered death and slaying of demons, of the adverse forces. And sometimes he pauses in his work and his singing to call out to Savitri, to speak loving words or mockery. He teases her. People who are in love, they can tease each other. Mockery, tenderer than love. He wouldn't make fun of her like that if he didn't love her so much. And she's seizing his words like a pantheress. You know, panther? It's one of these, it's like a leopard, actually, but often they are black. And she's seizing his words as if she's an animal of prey, seizing and carrying every word he says into the cave, the den of her heart. Varadarajan.
As he worked, his doom upon him came. The violent and hungry hounds of pain traveled through his body, biting as they passed silently, and all his suffering breath, disease, strove to rend life's strong heart-throbs and movement.
Yes. I don't know whether you are noticing this, but the poetry, the language in this part here is very different from what we were reading in the previous canto. And just now I'm studying the very first known draft of the poem. And in fact, for this whole canto, this whole book of death, Aurobindo has added about 20 lines near the end, and he's made a few small changes. But otherwise, what we are reading is what he originally wrote in 1916. So that's quite different from other parts of the poem, like Book 7, which he wrote mostly in 1946 and 47. And here, of course, it is the legend that he's telling in a very beautiful, evocative, colourful way. So as Satyavan is working, then his doom comes upon him. And it comes in the form of terrible pain. And it's as if running through all his body there are hounds, hunting dogs, violent and hungry hunting dogs, traveling through his body, biting as they passed. So we can't hear them. When we have real hounds hunting, we hear them, but they are biting silently. And as a result, the breath, the life breath in Satyavan's body, it's suffering so much, it's so much under attack that it wants to leave the body. It strove, it tried to tear apart the strong heart cords of life and become free. The breath wants to be, the life force wants to be free of this body because it's so painful. Ganga Lakshmi.
So, then felt as if a beast had left its prey. A moment in the wind of retrieve, rebound to strength and happiness is too. Rejoicing and resume his confident toil, but which less saying strove.
Yes. So there's a moment of relief. Something helps him or he feels helped. It's as if those hounds have let go of him, as if a beast has left its prey. The prey is the animal that the the predator catches. No? So he experiences a moment of relief. It's like a wave of rich relief. It feels so wonderful to be free of that pain, and he feels his strength come back and his ease in his body. And naturally he rejoices, he feels happy because of that. And he starts work again. He resumes his confident toil. He feels sure that he can finish his work, no? But with less seeing strokes. There's some weakening. He's not as conscious with his strokes as he was before. It's a very poignant picture that Aurobindo is painting. Sergei?
Now the great woodsman looked at him, and his labor ceased. Lifting his arm, he plucked away the golden axe, far from him like an instrument of pain.
Yes. So the great woodsman, death, comes and cuts us down like the forester cuts down the trees. No? So the great, Satyavan has been hewing at the tree. Now the great woodsman comes and hews at him. And he has to stop work. His labor ceased. And he throws away the axe, the poignant axe. Poignant is a word with two meanings. It means sharp and painful, but and also causing pain. So it's an instrument of pain. He throws it away from him. Joel.
She came to him in silent anguish and clasped, and he cried to her, Savitri, a pang cleaves through my head and breast, as if the axe were piercing it, and not the living branch. Such agony rends me, as the tree must feel, when it is sundered and must lose its life.
Yes. A pang, a pain cleaves through me. A cleaver is a big knife for cutting wood, or even the butchers use a cleaver to cut through bone. So this pain is cutting through my head and breast, and it feels as if my axe were piercing me, not that living branch of the tree. And he recognizes, he says, this agony that I'm feeling, it must be the same kind of pain that the tree must feel when it is cut, sundered, and must lose its life. Sarojini? Hmm? A while.
Let me join my heart upon the last, and to
God.
guard me with the hands from every head. Perhaps because to
touchest.
Death might pass.
Yes. So a while, he says, let me put my head in your lap. I have my book in my lap. And you protect me with your hands from evil fate, from misfortune. And perhaps because you are touching me, death may pass without taking me. A while, it means for a short time, let me lie down and put my head on your lap for some time, and you protect me with your hands. That may save me from death. Lila?
Then Savitri sat under branches wide, cool, green, against the sun, not the herb tree, which his keen axe had cloven, that she shunned. But lean beneath the fortunate kingly trunk, she guarded him in her bosom and strove to soothe his anguished brow and body with her hands.
Yes. So Savitri chooses a place to sit, a cool place, again under the branches of a tree, not the tree which Satyavan has damaged, the one which his sharp axe had cloven. Cloven is connected with cleave. He said something cleaves through my head. Cloven is the past form. His keen axe had cloven, cut through that tree. So she didn't go and sit in that one. She avoided that one. But she chose a fortunate kingly trunk. The trunk is the strong part of the tree, that comes up out of the ground. And in the forest, there are some trees that are like kings. They're so much bigger and more powerful than the others. She chooses one of those fortunate trees and leans against it and takes Satyavan on her breast and tries to soothe his brow, his anguished brow. He has a terrible pain in his head and in his body. She's stroking, soothing with her hands. We'll go along the back row. Matilda?
All grief and fear were dead within her heart, and a great calm had fallen. The wish to lessen his suffering, the impulse that opposes pain, were the one mortal feeling left. It passed. Breathless and strong, she waited like the gods.
Yes. So, sometimes in moments of extremity, some great strength comes. No? So it's like that. All the grief and fear that she's been feeling so intensely, now they have died too. And she feels absolutely calm. A great calm has fallen. And what she is feeling is the wish to lessen his suffering, to help him not to suffer so much pain. The wish to lessen his suffering, the impulse that opposes pain. There's something in us which feels that pain should not happen. People should not have to suffer. That was the only human feeling, the only mortal feeling left in her. And even that feeling passed. She becomes griefless and strong. She's waiting in the same way like the gods wait for what must happen, calm, without grief and without trouble. Andres.
But now his sweet familiar hue was changed into a tarnished grayness, and his eyes dim over, forsaken of the clear light shone. Only the dull and physical mind was left, vacant of the bright spirit's luminous gaze.
Yes. So he's really dying. Yeah? His familiar color is changed, becomes grey, tarnished, rusty, you know? And his eyes become dim. She has loved the clear light of his soul, but that is fading now. Only the dull and physical mind was left, vacant, empty of the bright spirit's luminous gaze, that gaze full of light, which is the mark of the soul. Alice.
But once before it faded wholly back, he cried out in a clinging last despair, Savitri, Savitri, oh, Savitri. Lean down, my soul, and kiss me while I die.
Yes. Well, it's very, very poignant the way he describes it. Satyavan knows that he's dying, but before the soul completely fades back, he cried out in despair. He knows there's no hope for him, but he's clinging to her. This lovely rhythmical line, Savitri, Savitri, oh Savitri, lean down my soul and kiss me while I die. Bebel, you will read.
And even as her pallid lips pressed his face, losing last sweetness of response, his cheek was dying her golden arm. She thought his mouth still, with her lip mouth, as if she could shoot his soul back with her kiss. Then grew aware they were no more alone.
Yes. So her lips have become pale also.
Shraddhavan,
Yes.
before starting, when Satyavan said my soul,
Yes.
he always sacrificed his soul.
He was, it's a way of saying, you are my life, you are my everything, you are my soul. Yes. So she kisses him, but he's already gone. He's failed. So there's no response to her kiss. That gets lost, that last sweetness of response. And the weight of his cheek presses down on her arm, and she still tries to kiss him as if that will call him back, as if she could persuade his soul, his life, to come back with her kiss. But as she does that, she becomes aware that they are not alone. Yes, Chandra.
Something had come their conscious, lost and dead. There had equal a silent shared events, chilling the noon with darkness for its back. And awful patch had fallen upon the place. There was no cry of birds, no voice of
Beasts, animals. So something had come there. She feels this presence, something that is conscious, something that is vast, huge, and dire, terrible, dreadful. near to her, she can feel this silent shade or shadow, a huge darkness, which is, it's hot, it's the middle of the day, but it's like a great shadow of a cloud coming. It's making that hot noonday seem cold, chilling the noon with darkness for its back at the behind of it. And with it comes an awful silence, a silence that makes one feel awe or fear or dread. An awful hush had fallen upon the face, upon the place. There are no birds singing, no animals to be heard. Something had come there. Suresh.
Their terror and an anguish filled the world, as if annihilation mystery had taken a sensible
Form.
form.
Yeah, we'll stop there. There's this silence, this shadow, this chill, and with it comes terror, extreme fear, and anguish, pain fill the world. And it is as if the mystery of annihilation. Annihilation is when there's something creates nothingness. If you annihilate something, you make it not exist anymore. There's a power here that can annihilate, which can turn things to nothing. How can that be? That's something very, very mysterious, that there can be a power that can turn things to nothing, that can annihilate things. But it's as if that mystery has taken a form, a shape that can be experienced by the senses. Feeling the cold, the sense of something near, something terrible, something dark and powerful and immense. So now comes the lines that Aurobindo added, and it's one long sentence. So you will read, Dhanalakshmi?
A cosmic mind looked out on all from formidable eyes, contemning all with its unbearable gaze and with immortal lids and a vast brow. It saw in its immense destroying thought all things and beings as a pitiful dream, rejecting with common disdain nature's delight.
Let's pause there. So that's what she feels. She's aware of a cosmic mind, a universal mind, a mind as vast as the universe. It's looking out on everything, on the whole universe, with formidable eyes, powerful, terrifying eyes. And it looks on everything with contempt. With its look, it feels and suggests that everything is worthless and useless and does not really exist. Contemning all. It's full of contempt. It's an unbearable gaze. And there's a face, immortal lids, eyelids, and a vast brow. This mind is seeing everything in the universe with its immense destroying thought. It says, no, you don't exist. You are nothing. Everything, all this, all the beings, it's all just a pitiful dream. It doesn't have any real existence. And that thought of his rejects nature's delight, all the joy of life. It rejects it with calm disdain. You feel disdain when you feel very, very superior, above everything. So he feels this being that has come, calm disdain. All this is worthless. It has no value, no meaning. We have two people who haven't read, yes. Mm.
The world's meaning of its deep regard, voicing the unreality of things, and life that would be forever but never was, and its brief and vain recurrence without cease, as if from a silence without a form or name. The shadow of a remote uncaring God. Doomed is not a illusory universe, cancelling its show of idea and acting time, and its imitation of eternity.
Thank you. So the way that it is looking at the world, its deep regard, is holding a meaning that is not put into words, but that look is saying that all things are unreal. And life, that life wants to go on living, to go on existing, but that look says, but this life doesn't really exist. It never was, it has never been. It's just repeating some illusion. It's vain, it's brief and vain recurrence. Recurrence is when something comes back over and over again. Life comes back for a short time, but it has no value, no meaning. It's as if from this silence, this vast silence with a capital S that has no form or name, the shadow of this remote, uncaring God, he's far away, he casts this shadow, is giving a sentence of doom. It's dooming to his own nothingness, the illusory universe. All this doesn't really exist. With his look and his thought and his presence, he cancels out all this appearance of idea and of action in time. And the imitation, the universe seems to imitate eternity. He says, no, all this is unreal. You will read the last two lines, please.
She knew that visible death was hanging there, and Shraddhavan had passed from her embrace.
Yes. So these two last lines were in the original draft, and all these lines from something had come there, conscious, vast and dire. These are the lines that Aurobindo has added to this canto to fit it in at a late stage, in 1949 perhaps, to fit it in to the framework of the rest of his poem, and without further revision to this particular canto passage. So we have time. Shall we read all these lines together? We go back to line 83. But Satyavan had paused. He meant to finish his labor here, that happy, linked, uncaring, they too might wander free in the green, deep, primeval mystery of the forest's heart. A tree that raised its tranquil head to heaven, luxuriating in verdure, summoning the breeze with amorous wideness of its boughs, he chose, and with his steel assailed the arm, brown, rough and strong, hidden in its emerald dress. Wordless but near she watched, no turn to lose of the bright face and body which she loved. Her life was now in seconds, not in hours, and every moment she economized, like a pale merchant leaned above his store, the miser of his poor remaining gold. But Satyavan wielded a joyous axe. He sang high snatches of a sage's chant that pealed of conquered death and demons slain, and sometimes paused to cry to her sweet speech of love and mockery tenderer than love. She, like a pantheress, leaped upon his words and carried them into her cavern heart. But as he worked, his doom upon him came. The violent and hungry hounds of pain travelled through his body, biting as they passed silently, and all his suffering breath besieged, strove to rend life's strong heart cords and be free. Then helped, as if a beast had left its prey, a moment in a wave of rich relief, reborn to strength and happy ease, he stood, rejoicing, and resumed his confident toil, but with less seeing strokes. Now the great woodsman hewed at him, and his labour ceased. Lifting his arm, he flung away the poignant axe, far from him like an instrument of pain. She came to him in silent anguish and clasped, and he cried to her, "Savitri, a pang cleaves through my head and breast, as if the axe were piercing it and not the living branch. Such agony rends me as the tree must feel when it is sundered and must lose its life. Awhile let me lay my head upon thy lap, and guard me with thy hands from evil fate, Perhaps because thou touchest, death may pass. Then Savitri sat under branches wide, cool, green against the sun. Not the hurt tree which his keen axe had cloven, that she shunned, but leaned beneath a fortunate kingly trunk. She guarded him in her bosom, and strove to soothe his anguished brow and body with her hands. All grief and fear were dead within her now, and a great calm had fallen. The wish to lessen his suffering, the impulse that opposes pain, were the one mortal feeling left. It passed. Griefless and strong, she waited like the gods. But now his sweet, familiar hue was changed into a tarnished greyness, and his eyes dimmed over, forsaken of the clear light she loved. Only the dull and physical mind was left, vacant of the bright spirit's luminous gaze. But once before it faded wholly back, he cried out in a clinging last despair, "Savitri, Savitri, O Savitri, lean down my soul and kiss me while I die." And even as her pallid lips pressed his failed, losing last sweetness of response. His cheek pressed down her golden arm. She sought his mouth still with her living mouth, as if she could persuade his soul back with her kiss. Then grew aware they were no more alone. Something had come there, conscious, vast, and dire. Near her she felt a silent shade immense, chilling the noon, with darkness for its back. An awful hush had fallen upon the place. There was no cry of birds, no voice of beasts. A terror and an anguish filled the world, as if annihilation's mystery had taken a sensible form. A cosmic mind looked out on all from formidable eyes, contemning all with its unbearable gaze, and with immortal lids and a vast brow, it saw in its immense destroying thought all things and beings as a pitiful dream, rejecting with calm disdain nature's delight. the wordless meaning of its deep regard, voicing the unreality of things, and life that would be forever but never was, and its brief and vain recurrence without cease. As if from a silence without form or name, the shadow of a remote, uncaring God, doomed to his naught, the illusory universe, cancelling its show of idea and act in time, and its imitation of eternity. She knew that visible death was standing there, and Satyavan had passed from her embrace.